All right, so let's talk about being the observer. All of us here, probably, if you're watching this, you probably have heard about you need to be the observer. You need to be the observer on your spiritual life. But what does that mean? And why do you have to be the observer? First of all, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything, that's for sure. But the concept behind being the observer is that we cannot distinguish the truth when we're in the middle of the muck. Do you understand? So it's very much like, it's very common. So you say something happens to you in your life. It can be hard. It can be difficult. It can be really challenging, right? And you rise to the occasion, you get through it somehow, and then years later you look back and you see it totally differently because you're not in the middle of the muck. Does that make sense? You're not in the middle of the tornado. You're further away from it. You have perspective, you have perception. And so you see it very differently than when you were in the middle of it. So this idea of being the observer is all about how can you be in the middle of the muck and not be heir to the muck, right? So it's like living in this world, but not of this world. We've all heard that before, creating heaven on earth, having a new perception, right? So a lot of people attempt to do this. Meditation is an incredible way to start to do this. True meditation. I'm not talking about guided meditation, excuse me, or guided visualization, but true one-pointed meditation where you follow your breath. You follow your breath. I teach my students the stay on the bench method, which I'm not going to tell you right now, but it's this way of going, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Seeing the thought, seeing the feeling, seeing the experience, so that it starts to look like, as the Course in Miracles uses the analogy of a movie screen, that you, instead of being in the movie, thinking that the movie is real, you're sitting in the theater and you're watching the movie. Because when you're sitting in the theater watching the movie, you have perspective, you have connection. And even in the Course in Miracles, it refers to sitting in this theater with Jesus. It doesn't have to be Jesus. Could be Buddha, could be whatever. Sitting in the theater out here and watching your life and seeing what's going on. Because when you are able to do that, your experience changes, your perception changes, and most importantly, your connection to life, love, God, source, divine self is much more apparent to you. You do not feel like a small little thing that's being at the effect of all the muck in the movie, right? So we want to do this so that we can, as I said before, be in the world but not of the world. Create heaven on earth. Because when you can walk through the world and you realize, and this is really true, and I say it all the time, and you realize the game that's been going on here, you start to become free. You start to be able to go, I would never do what I used to do when I thought that I was the person in the middle of the muck. Because here's the deal. You're not who you think you are. You are not who you think you are, and think is the operative word because we're thinking. And all of that thinking, I used this the other day in class, stinking thinking, all that thinking is creating a personality and experience for you that's keeping you away from the awareness of love's presence in your life, right? So, the eyes that you're looking through can never see the eyes that God is seeing it through, that source is seeing it through. But your will and God's is one, from A Course in Miracles. And the more that you can let go of what you believe, what you see, then you can see the truth. Does that make sense? This is one reason that I was thinking about before we came on today. This is definitely one of the reasons why I'm able to do intuitive work, because I do know why, but let me explain it to you. When I do intuitive work, I have no idea what's going to come. I don't know, mostly, don't know the person. I don't know the situation. I don't know anything. All I know is that I'm here to put me over there, and so that I can hear, feel, sense, and see what's really going on. Not my projections of what's going on, not their projections, but the truth. Somehow, when I was very young, I was able to do that. And then later, as I was trained in more intuitive work, that is an exercise all intuitives do. You imagine yourself sitting on the other side of the room, and you put yourself over there, and then you go, okay, well, what's going on here? What am I sensing? What am I feeling? What am I getting? This is why, I don't know why, I'll be like, your grandmother used to wear lilac dresses, and she had a dog, and the dog was with her all the time, and all of a sudden the things will just start flowing out of my mouth. It's because I put me over here, and I'm just, and this is the technique that you want to actually begin to tap into in order to have real spiritual awakening. Because if you're only looking through your own perception, through your own eyes, and not being the observer, then it's going to be very hard for you. You're going to keep trying to wake up within the dream. Does that make sense? You're going to keep trying to wake up in the dream, which is, there's nothing wrong with waking up within the dream. Let me tell you, it's better than being asleep in the dream and not knowing and not getting that there is something going on here, something bigger going on here, right? But when you start to wake up out of the dream, then you get what I always say. This is where it all is. This is not where it is. When I do this, that means your perception, your rose-colored glasses, your subjective viewpoint. Your subjective viewpoint is limited. Is limited. And if you are a meditator and you've done meditation where you get to that place where you don't know where you are, who you are, but it's all awareness, it's all openness. And I'm not talking about, how do I say this? I'm not talking about that feeling of spacey lacy. Spacey. No, it's actually very aware. It's like the most aware that you ever get. Does anyone ever get those feelings when you're meditating and you're so aware? When you can start to, as they would say, pierce the veil of consciousness right there, you start to get the taste of truth. You start to get the taste of, this is so much bigger than I thought. And I kept thinking that it was this, but it's really this. Take a deep breath, everybody. So you want to go from subjectivity to objectivity, but this objective perception is not you. It's not you. And I can tell you, like I can tell you a million times, but you have to have the experience of it. This is where the work comes in, the practice or whatever. It takes practice. It takes practice. Sometimes a traumatic event will throw you right in there because you almost have to dissociate yourself because it's so traumatic. And then you go, ah, I see it differently now, right? But you don't need a traumatic event to do that. You can practice this. You can practice this. And the more that you practice it, the more that there's another part of you that's living this life over here. See my hand? Over here, that's kind of watching the whole show. And this is not to say that you become cold or unemotional or whatever. You're just you walk through the world very differently because you're not at the effect of the world anymore. You're living in the world, but not of the world. If you are asleep, that's the term. If you're asleep or you're in the dream state and the illusion, then you are living, feeling as if you are at the effect of the world. But no, start to say, what if, here's the question. What if I wasn't me? What if I wasn't me? And I guarantee you, if you really ask yourself that, a lot of great spiritual teachers teach, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Of course. But I think on some level, it's a little bit more immediate to say, well, what if I wasn't me? Because if you were not you as you're watching this, you would perceive me and what I'm saying completely differently. If you were your sister, if you were your neighbor, if you were your brother, if you were Hillary Clinton, I don't know, you would be perceiving this all very differently. That just goes to show that there is no reality. We are projecting it all. But there's truth. And truth cannot be explained. But when, like I said, you start to pierce that veil of it, you start to get it. And you start to go, oh, no wonder I was living to try to get somewhere. No wonder I've been trying to do something I didn't really want to, whatever it happens to be. Then the rules of the dream state, of the illusion of the world, seem kind of ridiculous, honestly. And when that happens, you're on your way. You're on your way. This is what being the observer, when they teach being observer, anybody, myself or anybody, is kind of all about. I hope that this all is making sense.